the lesson today so I can study it?
Yeah, this lesson also, like the Mahasatipatthana, actually it's already 7 o'clock, so we should start. Maybe I'll mention that at the end of the program. No, at the end of the program, I'll mention about next week. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the Namo Tassa, the 3 refuges for those who like to do that. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So friends, welcome to this Wednesday evening Sutta class. And last week we finished up our look at the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And now tonight, for those who didn't get the mailing, I'm going to be going over the Ariyapariyesana Sutta, which is translated as the Noble Search. And this is found in Majjhima Nikaya 26. So we're going back to the Majjhima Nikaya to check some suttas that I don't think I had covered in before. So actually this, the Noble Search is the Buddha's discourse to a group of monks about how he, came to the Dhamma and how he got on the right path, and his motivation for wanting to seek, the deathless state. And the sutta is a little bit long also, and probably I will divide it into a couple of 2, perhaps even 3 different sessions over the next couple of weeks. We'll see how far we get. So, and as I've said before, the introduction to the sutta, or the way the sutta begins, it usually begins with a kind of a setting. And that is also kind of important, or at least helps to get a background of some of the Buddha's motivations for doing certain things, or certain topics that he would bring up. So I'm going to be reading this sutta because, of course, some of you didn't get this sutta, so you may not have a copy of it, or have read it yet. So again, this is in Majjhima Nikaya number 26, the Ariyapariyesana Sutta. So this was delivered by the Buddha in Savatthi. Uh, so in the morning, the Buddha went out for alms in Savatthi as he normally uh, does. And then a number of monks went to Venerable Ananda and asked the Venerable Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, they said, "Friend Ananda, it's long since we heard a talk on the Dhamma from the Buddha's own lips. It would be good if we could get to hear such a talk, friend Ananda." And so these monks, of course, the Buddha used to wander a lot here and there. And then whenever he stayed in a place, the monks used to come to that place, and they might not have seen him or heard any Dhamma talks from his own lips for a long time, perhaps even maybe a year or so. Of course, in those days, if you wanted to go see the Buddha, even if it was 100 miles, I mean, you'd have to walk for a week or more just to find them. And then maybe he had left to go somewhere else. There was no cell phones and no internet, so there's no way of knowing, no mail even, really. So there's no way with the monks. It was just all word of mouth, and, it traveled very slowly. So these monks had not heard any Dhamma talk from the Buddha. And of course, Ananda, being very compassionate, he thought, okay, I'll try to arrange, the Buddha to give a talk. So then Ananda hatched a scheme. So he said, okay, Venerable Ones, he told these monks, go to this Brahman Ramaka's hermitage. So, in Savatthi or around big cities, different monks had their own hermitage. And there was a certain Brahman named Ramaka who had his own hermitage. And he probably had a number of kutis and places for wandering monks to stay. So he told the monks to go to that hermitage. And he said, perhaps you will get to hear a talk on the Dhamma from the Blessed One's own lips. And they said, yes, friend. So, the Ananda wasn't promising. He said, perhaps, because he just say the Buddha will give you a Dhamma talk, because the Buddha has his own agenda and so on. And now it switches back to the Buddha after the Buddha had wandered for alms. And after the meal, usually the Buddha wandered for alms, between probably 6 in the morning and 10 o'clock in the morning, and then they ate their meal. And they were usually done with eating that meal by noon. And then the custom was the monks, after cleaning their hermitage and cleaning their bowls and drying them and so on, they would go into the forest for an afternoon sojourn. That means they would spend the afternoon in meditation in some cool forest cave or a grove of trees and so on. So the Buddha said to Ananda, after they finished their alms round, let us go to the Eastern Park, to the palace of Migara's mother, for the day's abiding, to do our meditation. So this one lay supporter, named Migara's mother, the mother of Migara, had a place built for the Buddha to come and stay in and take rest and practice meditation and so on. So he went there and spent the day meditating. And then after the meditation in the evening, he told Ananda, let's go to the bathing place and take a bath. So that might have been his habit or custom also. There was a spring of some sort, probably, or a bathing house over there. So he went to this pool, this spring, and had the bath. And as he was bathing, as the Buddha was drying his limbs, Ananda then, because now Ananda was, he knew that the monks were already over at this Brahmin's hermitage, hoping the Buddha would go there. Now the Buddha could probably read the mind of Ananda, or Buddha knew what was happening. His mind was, able to kind of know what was going on, basically. And so Venerable Ananda tells the Buddha, there's this Brahmin Ramaka's hermitage. It's quite nearby. That hermitage is agreeable and delightful. Venerable Sir, it would be good if the Blessed One went there out of compassion. Now, Ananda didn't tell the Buddha, hey, look, there's a group of monks over there waiting for you to come to give a Dhamma talk. But the Buddha probably could understand that or knew it. And, the Ananda said, out of compassion. So he normally, when the Buddha went anywhere, he normally would give a Dhamma talk. So the Buddha consented in silence. And then they went over to this Brahmin Ramaka's hermitage. And then those monks that Venerable Ananda had told they should go there, they were there sitting together discussing the Dhamma. And so the Buddha walked up this hermitage, evidently it had a door, and he stood out the door waiting for their discussion to end. So the Buddha was very, had a lot of patience. He didn't say, look, I'm the Buddha, let me in right now. I'm not going to wait. No, he stood there patiently, probably doing standing awareness. I mean, he was always in awareness. But so anyway, he waited for their discussion was over. And then he coughed and knocked on the door. Again, that was the kind of the custom. So it's very interesting how, again, these setups and how these some of these things occurred, in the customs of the day. So the monks opened the door for the Buddha and sat down on a seat that was made ready. And then the Buddha asked them, for what discussion are you sitting together here now? So the Buddha asked these monks, what were you discussing? And then they told, Venerable Sir, our discussion on the Dhamma was about the Blessed One himself. We are talking about the wonderful qualities of the Buddha. And then all of a sudden the Buddha arrived. So they were probably thinking, wow, this Buddha, he knows, he's got this premonition. And of course they knew that Ananda might have persuaded him to come or give the hint to come over to Brahmin Ramaka's hermitage. And then the Buddha replied to them, good monks, it is fitting for you clansmen who have gone forth out of faith from the home life into homelessness to sit together to discuss the Dhamma. And then he told them, as he frequently had before, when you gather together, monks, you should do either of two things. Hold discussion on the Dhamma or maintain noble silence. So the Buddha didn't encourage any chit-chat. Now, if he would have gone there and he would have heard the monks discussing, kings and queens and robbers and, just village gossip and so on, he probably wouldn't have gone in there. And so he told him either discuss whenever there's more than just two of you around, one of you, talk Dhamma or keep noble silence. Now, noble silence normally refers to having reached the jhana. Now, of course, most of those monks, they meditated. Of course, they did. And probably most of them could easily attain jhana. Or if at least if they weren't in a jhana, actually the second jhana is said to be noble silence because that's when the vitaka and the vichara, or any mental discursive thinking about the meditation, that would subside. But it could just mean that one was intent in their focusing on their meditation object and were quelling the hindrances and so on. And then the Buddha then started his talk. And he said, monks, there are these two kinds of search or quest that people do. There's the noble search and what he calls the ignoble search. And what is the ignoble search? So he starts with the ignoble search first. Now, if you're not sure, ignoble means not noble, kind of just mundane, not, just an ordinary search for ordinary things. So, and what is the ignoble search? Now, some people don't like to hear what the Buddha says, because it gets to the heart of their attachment. So just, anyway, try to hear this with a, grain of salt, okay? So the ignoble search, here someone being himself subject to birth seeks what is also subject to birth. Being himself subject to aging, he seeks what is also subject to aging. Being himself subject to sickness, being subject to death, being subject to sorrow, he also seeks what is subject to sickness, death, and sorrow. And being himself subject to defilements, he seeks what is also subject to defilement. So basically that means the normal mundane world. But then he qualifies it, okay? As if he had to explain it in more detail. And what may be said to be subject to birth? Wife and children are subject to birth. Men and women, slaves, are subject to birth. Goats, sheep, birds, pigs, elephants, cattle, horses, gold and silver are subject to birth. These acquisitions are subject to birth. And one who is tied to these things, infatuated with them, and utterly committed to acquire these acquisitions, that is the meaning of he is subject to what is also subject to birth. And then basically he repeats the exact same thing for aging, sickness, death, sorrow, lamentation. That means wife and children are subject to aging, sickness, death, sorrow, lamentation, and defilement, and all the various types of animals, gold and silver. Basically anything connected with the worldly life is subject to aging, sickness, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. So this person, because he is also subject to those things, he's seeking what is also subject to that. So, according to the Buddha, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, he repeats the basic same phrases for all those different categories of the ignoble search. And why does it say gold and silver is subject to defilement? Because people get attached to it, right? And they fight over it, and they want to steal it and rob it. And so that, of course, that's mental defilements, right? They're creating mental defilements over their attachment to all these things. And then he says, what is the noble search? And then he says, here someone being himself subject to birth, aging, sickness, sorrow, defilement, and death, even though they are subject to that, they seek the unborn, supreme security from bondage. They seek a way out of sickness, old age, sorrow, pain, and defilement and death. They seek the nibbana. So being himself subject to aging and the rest of it, and understanding the danger in what is subject to aging, sickness, and death, he seeks the unaging supreme security from bondage. So nibbana, or enlightenment, nibbana, has all those connotations, the unaging supreme security from bondage. So it doesn't age, it doesn't get sick, it doesn't even die, because it's the deathless state. So understanding that he himself is subject to all that impermanence and suffering, he doesn't seek refuge in those things. He seeks refuge in the path to liberation. And he says, that is the noble search. That means that was his motivation for the noble search. Because look, again, the Buddha was born as a prince. And he lived in the palaces, with his king and queen, and had all the imaginable sensual pleasures and nice sensual objects and food and things to see. And he, they kept as the story goes, they kept all the sick and old people out of the palace. So he didn't really see much sickness and old age and death going around, because when anybody in the palace got sick, they used to remove them. They didn't want the Buddha to see anybody. Of course, we know ultimately he did go out and see those 4 Deva messengers. But so having stated what is the ignoble search and the noble search, then he says, monks, before my enlightenment, while I was still only an unenlightened bodhisattva, I too, being myself subject to birth and the rest of it, sickness, old age, and death, I sought, and he also was seeking those things. So when he was a young prince, of course, he was enjoying those sensual pleasures, seeking them, but eventually he got weary of them. But anyway, it is just saying that then finally he woke up and he said, why am I seeking all these things, trying to enjoy all these things? It just brings suffering. So that's when he thought, let me seek the unborn security from aging, sickness, death, sorrow, and suffering. Let me seek the unborn supreme security from bondage. And so that was his motivation. Of course, as we know, he had been a bodhisattva for many lifetimes before he was born in that last lifetime as Prince Siddhartha. So he had been practicing the path all along. But so anyway, finally he did renounce the world, and even though his mother and father were crying and weeping and didn't want him to go off, but he did the great renunciation and left on his noble search. And then, I mean, I've told these stories before, but so having gone forth in search what is wholesome, he went to some different ascetic teachers, some well-known meditation teachers who claim to know the path to peace, know the supreme, the final, stage of liberation from these things. So he went to this one teacher called Alar Kalama and said, "Friend Kalama, I want to lead the holy life under your Dhamma and discipline." So this Alar Kalama had a big group of students that he was teaching. And so the Buddha wanted to become one of his disciples, because I guess he talked to some others and they said, "Oh yes, this Alar Kalama, wow, he's a great sage, I think he's attained enlightenment," and so on. It didn't necessarily say exactly that, but that was probably intuited. And so the Buddha went to this Alar Kalama and asked if he could stay there and practice his Dhamma. And he said, the Alar Kalama told him that this Dhamma is such that a wise person can soon enter upon and abide in it, realizing for himself through direct knowledge that state. He didn't necessarily say it was total liberation, but anyway, the highest state of meditation that this teacher had gotten a hold, had realized. So the Buddha mastered all of his Dhamma talks. The Buddha, would stay there and probably listened to quite a number of Dhamma talks, and so he said, as far as mere lip reciting and rehearsal of his teaching went, I could speak with knowledge and assurance, and I claimed that I know and see. And there were other of his disciples who also claimed to know and see. He didn't say know and see what, but anyway, then the Buddha thought further. He said, it's not through mere faith alone that our Alara Kalama declares, by realizing for myself with direct knowledge, I enter and abide in this Dhamma. And so he asked the Alara Kalama, exactly how do you meditate to get into this Dhamma? And he said, well, I meditate on the base of nothingness. So the meditation that this Alara Kalama was teaching is called the sphere of nothingness. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the jhanas, the first four jhanas, what are called form jhanas, and then there are four jhanas called formless jhana. That means they don't use any object of materiality to gain that jhana, whereas the form jhanas use, let's say, like anapanasati, or they use the body and body sensations, or they use a disc, to stare at some material object. But the formless jhanas are kind of more refined. And so Alara Kalama and these formless jhanas are basically what is called the sphere of infinite space, the sphere of infinite consciousness, and then the sphere of nothingness. So this third arupa jhana, or some people might call it the seventh jhana, but it's really the third formless jhana is what this Alara Kalama attained. So 3 out of the 4 formless jhanas. So the Buddha attained that, and it was very exalted. I mean, he could get his mind into this space where, gone through infinite space, infinite conscious, and there was just nothing there, and so this Alara Kalama thought that this must have been the ultimate, and so that was the highest state he got. And so the Buddha attained that state. And so he said, I soon quickly entered upon and abided in that realm of nothingness and realized for myself that direct knowledge of nothingness. Now, basically, it means the consciousness has been purged because of the concentration of any type of sensory input. So all the senses from the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and thoughts, all that has been kind of like, could be considered to be like almost an unconscious state, although there was some kind of perception of nothingness. So it was some kind of state of awareness. And so the Buddha went to his teacher and said, is that what you teach? Is just getting into these, this is your highest direct knowledge? And he said, yes. And he said, well, I can do that now too, And so Alara Kalama was delighted that, the Buddha had reached that highest thing. And he told, okay, now you and me are basically the same. You know what I know what you know. And, you should stay here and become the leader of, help me lead all these other monks. But somehow the Buddha reflected and said, this Dhamma does not lead to disenchantment, because he saw that this Alara Kalama was attached to having a big following of students, and he wanted to be recognized as a teacher and so on. So the Buddha felt that, I don't know. And also when he came out of that formless jhana, he realized that his mind hadn't fundamentally changed in any permanent, dramatic way, that he came back to kind of ordinary ego consciousness, and the defilements came back, after he came out of these meditations. And so he wasn't satisfied that could be the supreme security from bondage. And so he became disappointed in that. And he thought there must be something higher. There must be some kind of meditation higher than that. So he left this Alara Kalama. And then he heard about some other teacher named Uddaka Ramaputta. And so he went to this Uddaka Ramaputta. And basically the same scenario happened. This Uddaka Ramaputta invited the Buddha to stay there, and Uddaka Ramaputta had reached a higher level than the base of nothingness. So it is said that Uddaka Ramaputta had reached the 4th formless jhana of neither perception nor non-perception. In other words, even the perception of the infinite space, infinite consciousness, and nothingness were perceptions, mentally created kind of perceptions. But this next state, neither perception nor non-perception, was even more refined and pure than that there was hardly any perception at all, but you couldn't say that there wasn't any, but you couldn't say that there was. So they call it neither perception nor non-perception. And that's a state basically just before Nibbana would be be reached if one would go beyond and reach the Nirodha Samapatti. Anyway, so the Buddha practiced this formless jhana and mastered it, and then told this Uddaka Ramaputta, oh yes, I've mastered this jhana. And he said, okay, you can stay here, and you know what I know, I know what you know, we're equal, and you can help me teach these monks. But again, the Buddha was still not satisfied. And so the Sutta placed the Buddha on this high pedestal, like with him, and accorded him the highest honor. But again, the Buddha reflected, this Dhamma does not lead to disenchantment, nor to dispassion, or to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. Because the Buddha might have pressed them further, is there anything more than this? And they might have said, well, no, this is what we've reached, this is good enough, why bother yourself? I don't know, they could have talked like that. But anyway, but the Buddha, something in the Buddha said, no, there's got to be more than just getting absorbed in formless jhanas. Even though they're very exalted and had, it would be some pure spiritual states, you could call them that. But it wasn't the deathless state that the Buddha had been I think, searching for. So then it says, still in search of what is wholesome, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace, he finally, came to Buddha Gaya and saw the Bodhi tree and the river, the Ranjana river flowing nearby. And he said, eventually I arrived at Uruvela. There I saw an agreeable piece of ground, a delightful grove with clear flowing river, with pleasant smooth banks, in a nearby village for alms resort. And I considered, this is an agreeable piece of ground. This is a delightful grove with clear flowing river and smooth banks. This will serve. This may be the right place for my last stand, This will serve for the striving of a clansman, intent on striving. And I sat down there and then thinking, this will be the right place for me to continue the search. Now, then, for some of you who are familiar with the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, he did go on and practice a lot of self-mortifications with other groups of monks, thinking that was a way to purge the last traces of negative karma from the mind and so on. But it doesn't, this particular sutta doesn't go on to record all that. But it says, just I sat down there thinking this will serve for striving. And then he says, then monks, being myself subject to birth, having understood the danger in what is subject to birth, old age, sickness, despair and sorrow, I sought the unborn supreme security from bondage. And I attained that unborn supreme security from bondage. So basically, he's saying that now, for those who may not have, know the whole story about that, there's some other sutras that talk about that. Maybe we'll go into them later. But this particular one, he was basically, talking about the noble search and the ignoble search. So he gave up that search for mundane worldly pleasure, to seek the unborn, deathless, undying state. Now, so we mentioned that he had practiced these formless jhanas with these monks, and then when the Buddha came to the Bodhi tree, he remembered, practicing anapanasati when he was a young child, and he thought, oh, let me go back and practice his anapanasati. And so he went back to and basically he also made the vow, I'm going to sit down in this spot and not move until I've attained supreme enlightenment. So he made that kind of adhitthana, determination. He wasn't going to move until he had attained enlightenment. And so instead of getting his mind into these formless jhanas, he went back and he practiced anapanasati. And he was using this body as a laboratory. And, he was like a scientist. He wanted to get to the real heart of the matter. So, he sat down and used his body as a laboratory. And he used the anapanasati to bring his mind away from the external world and get the mind focused, in the body. And then he probably went over the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And again, like using the scientific method, asking, what is this body? What is this body made of? And he examined it. He attained the jhanas. For him, attaining jhanas was a piece of cake. So, at least he could attain the 4th jhana probably very, very easily. So using that, he then examined the body to see how it was just, the 4 elements, and he saw the 5 aggregates, the body-mind process in minute detail, because again, attaining those 4 jhanas, from the 1st jhana to the 4th jhana, is like turning up the power of a microscope, and you see more and more details of the body-mind process. So anyway, he examined that in terms of being impermanence and no self, and then that's when he had his, awakening enlightenment experience. And I've talked about that before, and how he explained that, and about the Satipatthana. I mean, we just went over the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, in the last month. So, anyway, I'm going to stop the going over the sutta right now in this spot, because it's already getting time is getting away. So I'm basically stopping at paragraph 19. Anyway, at the end, the Buddha said that, seeking the unborn, I attained that supreme security from bondage nibbana, and the knowledge and vision arose in me. My deliverance is unshakable. This is my last birth. Now there is no renewal of being. So we're going to stop there, and then we're going to pick up with that next week. And I'll try to send out this link to that again. But for those of you who are good at the internet, just remember this sutta is in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 26. Maybe one of our friends, John Wilson or somebody else, can put a link to that up. But I'll try to send it out again, a link to that sutta. And we'll pick up where we left off then. Now, I'd like to see if there's any questions in the chat room based on anything that I was just been talking about. So, I think one of these there's a notice about the program that I'm going to be doing on August, 1st of August. So anyway, so this question, what are the differences between the state of neither perception nor non-perception and the deep sleep? After going beyond not non-perception, does one perceive again? I cannot state what that difference is between neither perception nor non-perception and the deep sleep state. I cannot, from any personal experience or conviction, be able to say what the differences are, but certainly I'm sure there are some differences. But again, I'm not in a position to be able to really describe that. But after going beyond non-perception, does one perceive again? Yes, because that's only a state you get into. You come out of the state. So when you come out of the state, the jhana, you start perceiving again. And perceiving in the same ways that you had before. That's why the Buddha was not satisfied with that state of just going into these states and coming out of it, but it hadn't given any permanent type of transformation. So, okay. So is there any other questions on that?
Bhante,
Yes.
I have a question about, you had mentioned about the formless jhanas. Is the formless jhana, can that be compared to the shunya meditation? You know, the word shunya, I'm sure you know the meaning in Hindi, means zero.
Yes. Sunyata, sunya.
Right. So, in my thinking, I'm thinking it's the formless jhana is probably the same. It can be compared to that shunya or the zero meditation.
Well, sunya, the meaning that it's usually given for is emptiness, right?
Right. Where there is nothing.
Jhanas, I mean, one of them is called the nothingness, the one that he attained. So, it's a state where there's nothing in the mind, basically, but it was a perception. So that could seem very similar to being empty, right? I mean, empty and nothing.
Yeah.
Some people would consider to be, fairly similar. And,
Yeah.
for an ordinary person, if they happen to get into it, you would think it's the same, but we don't know. There's very subtle differences in some of these states. And so, again, I'm not in a position to say if they're the same or not. But all of those states, infinite space, infinite consciousness, basically, they would all seem to be like empty things. That means there's no objects as such in those.
Yeah, it's the same thing, Bhante. When you do get into that deeper state of meditation, you feel that there is nothing there. It is the feeling of nothingness.
Yes, but for an ordinary mind, it might seem like nothing, but for somebody with a very advanced degree of, mental power, the Buddha saw that there was something left. That's why he wasn't satisfied with that state.
Yeah.
Okay. So, friends, I think we'll finish up there, and because we want to now go on to our little yoga and meditation practice. Okay, so let's see. Does anybody remember what I was going to say at the beginning? About yeah, so next week we'll continue with that sutta where we left off tonight, and then I'll try to send out the link to that talk again. If people weren't getting that, or maybe Prashant, if you have that link, maybe you could put it up on the chat board. Or maybe you did already. I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway, let's take a little break, few minutes, and come back.
Bhante, there are 2 more questions in the chat.
Uh, uh, there's one question. Despite not leading to enlightenment, are the jhanas still useful tools? Absolutely, they are useful tools. But one should know their limitations and not to get stuck in them, especially the formless jhanas. Now, the first 4 jhanas are extremely valuable tools because that's what leads to the the perfection of the factors of enlightenment and the attainment of the paths and fruits. Now, one could attain it by going through all the formless jhanas, but that's very, very difficult. And not many people, I don't think, would be able to go that path, although that is one path that has been expounded. So they are useful tools, but one has to know how to use them and not get stuck in them. Like Alara Kalama and Udaka Ramaputta, those 2 teachers, they got stuck on those formless jhanas and they didn't get beyond it. So that's the point. They didn't use those tools all the way. They got stuck on them. And so that's the danger. One can get stuck. And by the way, just as a sidebar, it is said that if you die with your mind in a state of one of these formless jhanas, the lifespan is like thousands of eons of time. The mind would stay in these realms of rebirth realms where the mind was reborn in these states where one could not really practice any kind of meditation. So they're not considered to be useful to be reborn into because of a tremendous amount of time. And then when you are reborn, you're born back into a lower realm. So anyway, but I'm not going to go into that discussion. Okay, so this one question. I believed it was emptiness of self, which is different from the jhanas. Well, even the jhanas, when you're in the jhana, the sense of self is pretty much in abeyance, but it's not been eliminated. So when you come out of those states, the self becomes active again, and the discourse on voidness actually is a state of nibbana from the Buddhist point of view, but I'm not going to go into those discussions now. They're very rarefied, and I'm not in a position to really go into discussing the subtle differences between all those. Anyway, okay, we're going to, these other questions, one should be able to understand them. So let's go ahead and take a break now and then come back in a few minutes. Okay, friends, just stand up straight, relax your arms at the sides, gently close your eyes, feel the feet pressing the floor. Begin some deep, slow breathing. After breathing in, hold the air in the lungs a few seconds to allow all the oxygen to get into the bloodstream, and slowly breathe out. Just take a few deep, slow breaths, thinking like this. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Now on the next in breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, bend back a little bit. And the out breath, touch the top of the head. And the in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, bend backward. Feel the sensation. Out breath, touch the top of the head. In breath, up. Hold that upward stretch longer. Feel the sensation. Release the fingers, out breath, arms back to the sides. Just relax. Keep the mind focused in the body. Try to feel the increased subtle body sensation, pulsations, tingling sensation. Feel where the clothing touches the skin. Just getting the mind grounded, centered in on the body. Just letting go of your thoughts. And the next in breath, push up on the toes, raise the arms over the head in this way, and stretch up. Out breath, come back down. In breath, up. Out. Just let the breath help lift the body up. And relax. Keep the mind focused in the body, feeling subtle sensations. Just remember standing, standing, standing. letting the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind, keeping the sensation body in the front of the awareness, here and now. Okay, next we'll do side bending using both arms. On the in-breath, raise both arms up. Keep the fingers and arms straight, close to your head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side. Feel the stretch in the side. In-breath, lift up. And the next out-breath, other side, out-breath. In-breath, up. Out. In. Once more to each side. And the out breath, lower the arms. Just relax. Keep feeling the subtle sensation. Now spread the feet apart. At least 3 feet, the wider the better. Place the hands together at the chest. Breathe in, hands over the head. In the out breath, lower the hands to the chest, bend the knees, lower the body down. Feel the stretch in the hips and knees. In breath all the way up. Out breath. In. Once more, out breath. The out breath, arms back to the sides, relax. Keep feeling the body, don't give the mind time to wander. Feel each foot pressing the floor. Feel the clothing touching the skin. It's this body as it is here and now. Awareness, present moment awareness. And now we'll do the twisting from right to left, holding the arms out. Breathe in. On an out breath, twist to the right. Keep the eyes focused on the hand going back. In breath, back to the front. Let the feet turn with the body, and then the other side, out breath. In. Let's continue that 2 more times to each side. Relax. Keep feeling the body. Body sensation. Present moment awareness. Now bring the legs back together. Just one last exercise, the backward and forward bending. Turn the palms outward. Be careful with the back bends. Don't bend back too far the first time. And on in-breath, raise the arms up. Spread them out to the sides as you bend backwards. Keep the eyes open. In-breath, carefully lift up, keeping the arms out to the side. Out-breath, lower the hands down towards the floor. You can touch the floor or the feet to keep the legs straight. Let the small bones in the lower spine stretch out. And begin standing up, turn the palms outward again, the in-breath, arms up and out to the side. Lift up, in-breath, out-breath. Once more, in-breath, arms up and back. Out-breath. On an in-breath, as you stand up, bring the hands together at the chest, back to the sides on the out-breath. Relax. Just feel the whole body. Start to feel that subtle aliveness in the activated life force, oxygenated blood, electrical energy. Start to feel that vibration of the present moment awareness, grounded in the body. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back to our seats, get ready for the sitting meditation. Bring my glasses. And friends, just get comfortable in the meditation seat. You just feel the body grounded to the seat. And we'll align the spine and the head in a straight line. Keep the chin lifted up level with the floor. Just gently close the eyes. Now bring your total attention down to feel where your buttocks press the seat. Feel that sensation of solidness, the weight of the buttocks pressing the seat. See if you can feel your right and left buttock. Feel some sensation. And just remember sitting. Now mentally feel how the legs and knees are bent underneath, where your legs or feet are crossed underneath. And feel your feet, the sensations in your feet and toes. This is developing concentration and mindfulness at the same time. Concentration is keeping your attention on a certain spot for 10 or 15 seconds. Mindfulness is feeling some sensation within that space. Now feel your hands and fingers, where they touch together, where they touch your body. See if you can feel the outline of your thumbs and fingers, the subtle pulse of blood, and tingling sensation. It's like looking down through a microscope looking down to that focused awareness on the hands and fingers. Again, remember sitting. Now feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulder. Relax the shoulder. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulder or chest. Just feel any different sensations in those areas. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. So you imagine, feel the head balanced on the top of the spinal column, like balancing a soccer ball on a broomstick. Try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hip. And feel some sensations on your face. Imagine, feel the skin stretched over the front of the skull. Feel that stretch sensation of the skin, your forehead, and nose. And feel the lips touching together. And feel the sensation of dryness or moistness in the lip. And feel the tongue laying in the mouth. The tongue may touch your teeth, the inside of the mouth. Again, just remember sitting. And now let the awareness rest, a point just behind the eyes. Just feel the eyes and the socket and the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. Going to just watch your eyes sitting in the socket, watching with the inner camera. We see the outside world with the fleshy eye. We see the inner world under the skin with the eye of awareness. Could call it the third eye, the eye of awareness. Just feel the subtle eye movement. You might just notice light or color or a mental image. Again, just be aware of sitting. Now from that point behind the eyes, with the awareness, the lens of awareness open up to try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Feel the head on top, shoulders, arms, chest, buttocks, legs and feet. Try to feel that outline of the body, like a collage, different sensations. Remember sitting. Now begin some deep, slow breathing again, like we did in the yoga. A few seconds to draw the air from the lower lung up to the top of the lungs and chest. Feel that expansion of the upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. Squeeze all the oxygen out of the lungs into the bloodstream. And feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. Feeling the last bit of air go out of the lung. Start to take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness. And breathing in, letting go of the past and future. And breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to count our breaths from 1 to 10 to try to develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing process. And continue to take some deeper breaths that helps you to concentrate. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Feel the brief pause. With the contracting out breath, also count to 1. The next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath 4. Out breath 4. In breath 5. Out breath 5. In breath 6. Out breath 6. In breath 7. Out breath 7. In breath 8. Out breath 8. In breath 9. Out breath 9. In breath 10. Out breath 10. Now just continue the counting. Just let the breathing return to its uncontrolled or shorter, irregular rhythm. Continue to feel, either stay focused to feel the expanding and contracting sensations, stomach, abdomen, or chest, or you want to focus to feel the air going in and out of the nostrils. Use that as a point of concentration, whichever helps you to stay alert, awake. Just know when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling it. Try to notice the 4 phases of each breath cycle. The incoming breath, the brief pause. The outgoing breath, the brief pause. Just over and over and over again. I can feel like being a scientist sitting in the laboratory. This breathing body is the meditator's laboratory. Concentrated awareness is the microscope. And you start to feel those 4 phases of each breath. Sensations of the incoming breath, the brief pause, the outgoing breath, the brief pause. During the brief pause, try to feel the outline of the sitting body. Remember sitting. You can use these brief mental notes that we talk on vicharas. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. That connection to the present moment. The ongoing, continuous connection to the present moment. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. At the same time, be alert for thought sneaking up into the mind or any of the other hindrances, drowsiness, sleeping, letting go of those hindrances, applying the appropriate antidote, coming back to stay connected to the present moment, the breathing body. So with each out breath, start to feel the body and mind relaxing more and more into the present moment, feeling those subtle, pleasant sensations, piti and sukha. Even while feeling, being centered in the breathing body, notice the flow of impermanent other sensation. Urges, thought coming and going in the mind. Try to identify the five aggregates. This is material vibration. This is painful or pleasant feeling. This is perception, volition. This is the ego consciousness, thoughts align in your mind. They're constantly changing. Even while the body sits and breathes, these five aggregates are constantly undergoing impermanence and change. All by themselves. Five aggregates are continually coming and going under the power of the past condition. What perceptions or thoughts arise based on that sound contact? Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi isamago visuddhiya. Dukkha pata cha nidukkha bhaya pata cha nibbaya soka pata cha nisoka hontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world, are impermanent. They arise only to change and vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. And thus spoke the Buddha. Now mindfully place your hands at the edge of your knees and take a deep, slow breath as you're breathing in. Stretch your head back, arch your lower spine. And lift the head up on an in-breath. On the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. Stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the chin up level on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So this brings our evening Sutta study and meditation to an end. I hope all of you are at least able to get a few minutes or more of some good focused awareness, some insights, some tranquility, or some insights into impermanence, no self. So again, as a reminder, I'll be giving a talk on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock on Eastern time. That'll be on another Zoom link, which I'll try to send out again on a mailing before this weekend. In the meantime, remember mindfulness. The day keeps dukkha away. The sutta day keeps delusion away. Namo Buddhaya means the present moment awareness is always there, literally just beneath your nose, if you know how to tune into it. Okay?
Thank you, Bhante. Thank
Sadhu,
you.
Sadhu Bhante, the son of the Buddha.
You're all welcome.
Good night, sir. Reverend sir.